Hello, this is Ben Cubbage from Whiteboard Jesus, and this is part 2 of Jeremiah chapter 2 as we explore Jeremiah chapter 2, verses 4 through 12. I want to talk a little bit about this phrase, where is the Lord, in Jeremiah 2, verse 8. The priest did not ask, where is the Lord? Those who deal with the law did not know me. The leaders rebelled against me. The prophets prophesied by Baal, following worthless idols. Here we see this very interesting phrase, the priest did not ask, where is the Lord? Now you know a society is in trouble when its priests, the very ones who are supposed to represent the heart of God to man, have forgotten to seek him themselves. Where is the Lord? They don't know where he is because they themselves cannot find him. Notice that they all have gotten too busy, too distracted. The prophets, supposed to be in touch with God's voice, are now instead prophesying by Baal, following worthless idols themselves. I guess it just seemed more culturally relevant, more trendy and intriguing to run after a Baal rather than the one true God. In this way, they've left their position, they've left their post, and abandoned their one job with God. It seems that they have gotten infatuated with the wrong things, worthless, empty things. They have stopped asking the most important question: where is God in all this? Where is God in my life? Instead, they've given up the ultimate weighty question and turned to seek after empty, hollow things. They are now asking the question, where am I in all this? Or where's the culture in all this? Or where's my family in all this? They've taken their eyes from God back to themselves. The worth and weight of what you do is determined by what you seek and what you look at. The quality or substance of our gods will show us about our own fruit and the lasting contribution of our short, feeble lives. What are you investing in? What are you worshiping? We become identical to what we worship, and we all worship something. If you want to produce a life of no real legacy, just vanity, a poof of a morning mist that fades under the 10 a.m. sun, then run after pop culture, tabloids, news reports, themed magazines, movies, Instagram pics of your food. These are all good things in of their own right, but they're not going to satisfy in the end. But if you want your life to count for something, it starts with the question you ask yourself when you first get up in the morning: where is the Lord? Where's the Lord in my work? Where is the Lord in my family? Where's the Lord in my shopping habits and my finances? Does your financial spreadsheet reflect where the Lord is and what you're giving to? Where's the Lord in my spending and saving? Look at your checkbook. Follow the money trail, and you'll know what you worship. Where's the Lord in my hobbies? Where's the Lord in my tennis practice? Where's the Lord in my art or my homework? Where's the Lord in my house and hospitality? Can you find God in these things, or have you totally left him out of the equation? The question should be your GPS, your guiding North Star that pulls you into the place you're going. Where is the Lord in this? Where's the Lord in this matter or that matter? And can I find him here, or have I totally forgotten him? We see the priests here wandering, meandering all over the map with no real central destination. They are lost in a spiritual desert, trying to find meaning in the meaningless. They are trying to guide a people desperate for answers, and they themselves are lost. This is the very definition of the blind leading the blind. As the priests here and all the leaders of Israel have totally forgotten the Lord and no longer know where he is. This reminds me so much of our own modern culture. There's no right or wrong today, no up or down, no moral or definitive compass. We just do what we want, go where we want, as pleasure and lust guide us. And we do you, and that guides us to a million variant, placeless points. There's no central destination. There's no central question or thrust of our time as a society except, what can I do for myself? And how can I not offend anyone else doing it? The map looks like this. Okay, so this is Whiteboard Jesus. So now then we actually are going to use this whiteboard here. So I want to use this whiteboard to talk a little bit about this question, where is the Lord, that we're talking about? I was just talking about my drone kind of being uncalibrated or being lost. And that's often how we are in a society. We don't really have a map, or we don't have a particular direction as a society. This is kind of what our lives often look like in a society. We kind of just move from thing to thing, and we move around in circles, and we just kind of run around. Like a dog sort of chasing its tail in a circle, our map tends not to be very clear and tends to be quite convoluted. It's almost like our whole life is kind of a modern art piece with no beginning and no clear end, and no one really knows what it means in the end, but it was kind of fun to do in the middle. So I challenge you that your life doesn't have to look like this. It doesn't have to be confusing. You can have a place, you can have a direction. And in God, our lives can actually have a start and a finish, and can have a trajectory of our lives that we're pointing to something. And the something we should be pointing to is God. We should be living and working for God's glory in our life. So if you're not asking the question, where is the Lord? Your life may look a lot like this, like a squiggle that has no particular meaning, no start or finish. But when you live for the Lord, and when you say, where is the Lord, and how can I give him glory in my life, your life can live with a trajectory of an arrow reaching its target with power and authority. God calls us into something bigger than ourselves, into a great story, into being part of a bigger, grander universe, a longer and more complete story than just our endless mortgage and what we're going to do for fun on the weekend. God calls you into a bigger question. C.S. Lewis writes in The Last Battle this: "And as he spoke, he no longer looked to them like a lion, but the things that began to happen after that were so great and beautiful that I cannot write them. And as for us, this is the end of all the stories, and we can most truly say that they all live happily ever after. But for them, it was only the beginning of the real story, and their life in this world and all their adventures in Narnia had only been the cover and the title page. Now at last they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story, which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the ones before." This is from The Last Battle in the Chronicles of Narnia, the last book, or the seventh book of the Chronicles of Narnia. Here you can see in Narnia, it's sort of reflecting this question, where is the Lord? And it's leading us into a guiding question of our lives, where we should be living into a bigger story. And if it's not the question we are asking, the questions that we are asking are too small, too weak, too cheaply plastic, too thin, and too impermanent. Like the priests who had lost their way in Jeremiah 2, instead of direction and focus and purpose leading to something guided by the right angles and geometry and truth and revelation, the very presuppositions of our life are far out of whack. We have really, really lost our way and gone off track. I want to talk a little bit about flying my drone as an example of this kind of guiding GPS. When I'm flying my DJI drone as I travel, the drone must fly by locating 12 different satellites. It knows where to fly, how to wireless broadcast its signal, back to my remote control, and where to land based on this information as it locates itself in the air, based on something higher, something greater, and something outside itself, which are the satellites. No matter where it is in the air, I can just press the home button, and it should return to within a meter of where I launched it if anything goes wrong. But there are some scary moments when it's flying and I lose touch with all those satellites. Most likely, the DJI signal to the satellites gets blocked as it enters some canyon or dead zone area of no reception. At this time, the screen goes black for a minute, and my drone is now over 300 meters away, and I can't physically see it or hear it or track where it is. I've been staring down at the remote control screen, guiding the drone to take video, so I really have no idea where it is in specific relation to me in real space. My heart sinks, and my imagination runs to the terrible idea that my drone is somewhere out there in the wilderness, crashing 100 vertical meters into some remote swamp or dense forest or mountain cliff that I will never be able to access by foot. Even if I could get there geographically to recover the drone based on the terrain The crash it just sustained from great heights will certainly ruin it for life. I've just lost $1,000 in my mind. I can no longer see where it's flying, and there's no video. All is dark on the screen and uncertain. In my mind's eye, my expensive investment is lost in the wild. Then, after a minute, by some miracle of reconnection with the satellites, it hovers into an area with satellite signal, and I can see from the camera again as its footage appears on my phone. What the gimbal camera sees on the DJI drone, I can now see again on my remote control. It is reconnected with a broader system and has now a place in space and time, and I can bring it back to its home point. Hopefully, with some nice videos of the mountain scenery, or at least in one piece to be used another day. Like my drone, our vision into something above ourselves comes from connection, relationship, and centering and positioning with something greater. The drone allows me to see amazing views that I can never see on my own. The angles that it gets up there are amazing. The drone casts a wider vision and greater picture than I can produce from my own limited and ultimately self-centered ground vantage point. But to do so, it must connect and center itself on anchor points outside of itself to be able to fly and take video. Our anchor point, like the drones, is not culture or my own feelings. The drone's technology anchors itself to 12 separate satellites, and I must anchor myself to 3 separate satellites: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. These give me a triangulation of heart and soul position, allowing me to know where I am. And I can therefore ask the question, where is the Lord? And it centers me back to where I am. Our anchor point is this question. Without that question, our drone of our life is lost or non-existent. It's kind of just floating. There's no signal. Asking this question, where is the Lord, put our lives in the right calibration and direction with reality. Every time I fly my drone, I must calibrate the compass so it is in relationship with a sense of place and space and direction greater than itself. It cannot fly or have direction or return home or take a video on its own. The Lord is this vital, calibrating, centering relationship in our lives that gives us direction and purpose. Living a right, meaningful, and profound life starts with asking the right questions. If you are asking the right questions, the right answers can then follow. Asking this question, which the priest of Jeremiah did not ask, where is the Lord in this, can be so helpful, so guiding in very practical ways. I want to give you an example of a dating relationship. Imagine a new couple in a dating relationship. Many times it's hard to know in the moment of new attraction if it's going to be a long-term relationship that's going to go towards marriage or just a flash in the pan that's temporary. Is he or she the one forever? Are they my soulmate? And how do I know? It is helpful in this situation for you to ask the question, where is the Lord in this dating relationship? As you ask this question, do you find that your purpose and calling and relationship with God feels stronger or weaker because of the relationship? This is a good gauge of how godly a relationship is. Does this person push you to or away from God? Do they encourage you to step out into your gifts and promises from God, or pull and distract you away from them? Is God here in this? And is he getting glory from this? Or is this something just to further preen your feathers and strut around like a proud peacock? Or is it for your own physical gratification? These are all questions that stem out of the root question, where's the Lord in my relationship? We're taking another example of eating habits. We all eat, most of us, 3 times a day. And we can use overeating or undereating to shape and control what feels unmanageable in our lives. The day was so crazy, so we binge on Breyer's ice cream to replace those feelings of stress and uncertainty with some needed pick-me-up pleasure. Or, on the opposite side, everything else was way out of control in our lives, so we weigh and measure every ounce of our food to reestablish our own authority and control. Maybe we're disciplined about what goes in our mouth to gain some sense of control in a disorderly, threatening world. Here the question is helpful, where is the Lord in my food? Just like we asked about the dating relationship, you can also apply it to your own eating habits. Of course, some may think that this question is not of interest to God. It may seem too small or even belittling to the God who made galaxies and who's been there for every flood and famine of the Nile River, and who made the creation of every burning star and has also seen every burning star fall. But if Jesus' first miracle was water to wine at a wedding, he must take some vested interest in our food and drink. Feeding the 5,000 from fishes and bread loaves also shows us that he cares about what we eat. At the very least, he cares for what food represents to us regarding relationships, social systems, spiritual health, physical energy, internal motivations, and dependence on God. And that is a lot of important stuff that fits into one bag of Doritos. So when we're talking about food, it's not always just about the food. Rather than shoving a spoonful of creamy Greek yogurt and honey into your mouth to deal with stress, what if you journaled and asked God, where are you in my boss's criticism of me? Why does this make me want to shove my feelings down with food? That question could be much more revealing than just another well-deserved pleasure fix. Alternatively, on the other side of the issue, you may be very strict about your diet. You've been doing Whole30 and gluten-free since before it became trendy. You exercise regularly, and you got your food dialed in. While God certainly wants us to honor him with our bodies as a temple of worship, there may be a deeper, unspoken issue about your diet. Again, we can ask, where is the Lord in my food? This could lead to a whole series of rude emotions or needs that are presented by some seemingly innocent food habit. So we're looking past the fruit down to the root of the tree and asking, what's really going on here? Why am I so deliberately attentive to my food? Is this because I do not believe I am beautiful? So I radically control my food to control what others think of me, to make myself beautiful? Does this come down to my own self-worth, or not believing I'm enough, or not believing I'm worthy? Could this sense of unworth derive from my father's lack of approval, or from being the fourth hidden child in a family of 5 kids? It may very well be that your attraction to Domino's pizza is really just based on the fact that hot melted cheese pizza and pepperoni is really simply delicious. Everyone loves that and can't fault you for that. And that is as far as the rabbit hole goes down and no further. There's really no deeper to dig for you. And that's okay if it is just what it is. For some of us, life is just that simple. There are no issues of stress eating or work pressures or feelings of inadequacy tied up into your food. It's just there. But very often our outside habits reflect something of our spiritual or social condition inside. And here it is certainly worth opening the lid a little bit, just peering into our souls a little bit to ask the question, where are you, Lord, in my habits? Where are you, Lord, in my eating? And is there some deeper things going on down there that I haven't expressed so far? I recently experienced a breakthrough in my life by asking this very same question. I'm a travel guide, and after 2 years of COVID lockdowns, I was questioning if I was in the right place, both in terms of geography and career. Our business uses ecotourism to pour into communities, and we had lost a lot of business with COVID-19 restricting world and domestic travel. Like many of us, my purpose is largely, but not wholly, tied to what I do in the workplace. And I like to think that as a business, we make a difference to local mountain communities in shaping jobs and lives and providing a meaningful tourism experience. But like a mouse continually gnawing at an old piece of bread, these long-term pandemic closures had whittled through my business, and a lot of my outward purpose through my guiding was whittled down to a very small, awkward crumb. I started looking at other jobs or careers as mine was kind of tapering off, and the travel business was really suffering during COVID. After living overseas for such a long time, I was no longer sure where I belonged. I was no longer sure who I was. And I started going through a miniature midlife crisis, wondering if I was supposed to be here or there, or who I am, or am I in the right place? I imagine COVID created a lot of such transitions and questions and doubts for so many of us who lost jobs, lost houses, lost parents, spouses, lost decades of stacked up purpose and retirement and investment, and maybe threw the whole world in a whole wild spin of uncertainty off rhythm and out of sorts with ourselves. I certainly got a little lost, like a drone without a GPS connection. I felt the blind drift and maybe a crash coming on. In this lost space, I attended a church and heard this passage preached from Exodus 33, verse 3. Go up to the land flowing with milk and honey, but I will not go with you, because you are a stiff-necked people, and I might destroy you on the way. Here in Exodus 33, God tells Moses he will not go with him into the promised land, and Moses reels in terror. Moses begs God for his needed presence. After having walked through the desert for 40 years, he can't believe that God would leave him. Moses said to him, if your presence does not go with us, do not send us up from here. How will anyone know that you are pleased with me and with your people unless you go with us? What else will distinguish me and your people from all the other people on the face of the earth? This is in Exodus 33, verses 15 through 16. I've been looking at doing 100 different jobs in the future amidst my midlife post-COVID crisis. Those jobs included pastoring a church in Montana, being a kayak guide in Norway, leading expeditions to the Grand Canyon, and becoming a park ranger. I was looking at a whole variety of things all across the board and all across the globe. I was looking for anything not where I was right now because I'd been so hurt by loss and disappointment through COVID. I was challenged by the Holy Spirit, though, in this Exodus 33 passage to ask, where is God's presence in my life right now? All of those seemingly new and exotic jobs seemed very attractive as I wanted a new start. None of them were morally wrong, and probably in most of them I would have been professionally excellent in these positions. So they were good in and of themselves. But I did not see the Lord moving in those places in this season. Instead, I felt the Lord was still in my current business. Despite lockdowns and difficulty and struggling to stay open and wondering if the travel market will ever come back again through international tourism, that he was right here where I was and wanted to do more through me where I was. This was surprising because I had already personally given up hope in some ways. For me, I was probably never going to move to Montana to be a pastor in the near future. I probably wasn't going to be a kayak guide in the near future either. But I needed to ask this question to figure out who I was and where I belonged. I had to put everything on the table and come back to this question, where is the Lord? I found that he happened to be right here, and he asked me to grow in the place that I was planted. This one question has a lot of power to center and position us in the places we are destined to live and to keep us out of the alleys that we aren't supposed to go to. The priests forgot this question in Jeremiah 2 and ended up in some pretty distant and shocking places. This is Ben Cubbage. Subscribe for more in Bible teaching as we keep going through the book of Jeremiah. Thanks for joining us today in Jeremiah chapter 2.